Alright, hi everyone, I'm Warlord Magni, and thanks for coming to the next installment on my Newb to Warlord series. So today we're going to talk about goal setting. This isn't going to be like a very heavy instructional like fighting class. This will be like more conceptual and like broad skills learning. So first off, right, like I just want everybody to know the stuff that I'm going to talk about today is general life skills. You can use this anywhere, right? It's not just stick dork related. It's not field related or specific. You could take this and do it in the arts path, or in getting a job or like developing yourself in the mundane life. But for the context of this class, I will be emphasizing in goal setting in becoming a better fighter. All right. So why is goal setting important? So first off, like if you are able to properly set goals, you are more likely to achieve them. That is important if you want to grow as a person, as a fighter, whatever. Um, Additionally, you will be able to achieve your goals faster and more efficiently, better growth, and deeper growth as well. Um, Additionally, this like properly setting goals will establish more accountability and it will install discipline. Um, and to me, that's really important. I think being accountable for your goals makes like it invests you more in what you're trying to do. And so, because of that, you are more likely to continue and achieve them. And then, additionally, I think setting goals properly helps prevent burnout. It helps you stop from getting tired of what you're doing, or you know like if you're coming to amtgard, this shouldn't be a space that you dread coming to every week, right? Like this is a hobby. You should be excited to come to amtgard, and it should be a refueling experience rather than a draining experience. Okay, so now that we know why it's important, what are large goals, right? Or goal setting is really more in the context of large goals. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So I just want to establish this, that large goals such as becoming a warlord or becoming a master dragon or becoming a master whatever, or getting your PhD or going to college and getting a bachelor's degree or doing big life stuff is really just a series of smaller goals, um, or achievements comprised together or compiled together to make the bigger goal as a whole, right? So small goals achieved are achieved by learning new skills, and or by doing stuff, right? So for example, Warlord, it's a very structured format where if I want to get Warlord, I have to get my first warrior, my second, my third, my fourth, all the way up to my 10th. Inside of getting those warriors, it's more implicit, but there are skills that I need to be able to attain or be able to achieve, be able to master, be able to utilize, and have in a toolbox to actually get those warriors. Now, granted, there's some flexibility there within amtgard or within like winning tournaments and stuff, but there's a general baseline, right? Like every warlord is going to have mastered baseline fundamentals, right? Like every warlord should know how to throw a chop shot and how to move and how to like do core blocks, and stuff like that, right? Uh, Also, additionally, right, you can think about building a house. This is another example of like a large goal. Within building a house, there's steps that you have to go along. You know, you have to clear out the land where the house is being built. You have to provide utilities or get utilities to come in. You then have to lay the foundation. Then you can put the walls up, put the roofing up, and then you can do all the internal stuff. Um, and so those are all like milestones that you have to go through in building a house, right? The house is just an analogy to like Warlord or any other big goal that you want to do in life. And so not everything has to be done in sequence, right? So in the house analogy, you do have to clear out the land before you can put outlets in, right? Like there has to be a wall for outlets to be in. But like if the structure of the house is made, you can install the plumbing and install the electrical lines and stuff at the same time. In terms of Warlord, or like increasing your fighting skill, I can learn how to throw certain shots while also working on like body mechanics, for example, right? I don't have to learn these things separately or discretely. They can be learned in parallel. Now, some things I would say, have to be learned in sequence. I would say mastering like strong shot fundamentals is necessary to be able to do advanced movements or advanced like fighting skills. Okay. Or like, for example, if you cannot recognize and you don't have the reflex skills to see what is happening in a fight, it doesn't matter like how fast you are physically, because your mind is not going to be able to see what's happening, see a shot coming, register what's happening, and know how to counter, right? Like, okay, great. You can throw really fast, but if you can't see a shot coming, then like the block doesn't matter, right? So in that sort of line, you would have to build up your reflex skills and your recognition for your use of fast shot throwing or block throwing to actually be useful. So with large goals being amalgamation of smaller goals, how do you achieve large goals? And so I would say to achieve large goals, what is the most important is being able to build a plan and set your checkpoints, right? Set your milestones, and doing this very diligently, I think, is crucial. And so there's three main questions that I would ask. So first off, where do you want to go, right? What is the big goal, okay? In this context, if you want to be a warlord, all right, that's top shelf, right? That is the finish line, right? That is the top of the mountain, as you know, we talk about in the fighting culture. But now you need to know two other things, or ask yourself two other things. Where are you now, right? Where on the path up the mountain are you? Are you halfway up? Are you at the foothills? Are you like not even over there? Like you're not even facing the mountain, or whatever, right? And then once you know where you are and where you want to go, you need to be able to begin to plan out the path. Now, if you have a mentor, you have a coach to help guide you along the way, that's going to be amazing, right? That'll make life really easy, because they will help say, oh, you're like, in terms of fighting, you want to become a warlord. I think you need to optimize your shot paths more, or you're using too many wraps and you need to use chops, or your footwork is very stagnant. You need to be more dynamic or mobile on your feet, right? Those are things that you need to build. Those are checkpoints or aspects that you can tailor around your fighting to become a warlord, right? And so having a mentor there that can point out those problems or direct you where to go is really helpful, but it's not necessary. As I did my climb, I did not have a warlord or a sword knight telling me what I needed to do. I had to figure it out myself. And I think a lot of the content within my Newb to Warlord series helps people that don't have that structure or have that relationship with somebody, to try to help them identify their own areas that they need to build out on. Okay. Yeah, so I guess I also have like a map analogy if this isn't straightforward, right? In terms of where you want to go, where are you now, and how do you get there. So for example, if we're in Chicago and I tell you I need you to drive me to New York City, how do we get there, right? First off, you need to know you go to New York City. Where are we? We're in Chicago. We're specifically in West Chicago, whatever. And then how do we get there? Like, what interstates do I need to go on? What exchanges, right? Each one of those turns in this analogy are skills that we need to build out, right? Stuff like that. Okay, so now the real question in terms of achieving our larger goals and achieving the smaller goals within that large goal is, how do you learn new skills, or how do you achieve intermediate goals, and then how do you learn the new skills to achieve those intermediate goals? And so I think what this really, in the way that I think about this, is it forces us to think about how we learn. Okay, and so there's been a lot of research in the psychology field and sociology fields in the way that humans learn. And so there's this Yerkes-Dodson curve, which I think conceptualizes learning really, really well. And so it's just a very simple graph where on the y-axis you have your growth, right? Like your performance, your knowledge or the knowledge that you're gaining as a function of time. And then on the x-axis, you have stress, okay? And so, right, this is low stress, this is high stress, right? Low growth, high growth. And so as you go across, you start off first, there's 3 regimes. There's this low regime here, or you have a bell curve, right? Imagine I'm writing, right? So at low stress, you have low growth. And so the reason why is because you're non-engaged, you're not really focused, you're not being pushed enough to really learn, right? Alternatively, if you go all the way over here, in high stress, you also have low growth. And the reason is because of that is you are now overwhelmed, you become anxious and overloaded to such that you cannot actually learn what you're doing. You're more in survival mode of, oh shit, I got to get this stuff off my plate, right? It's only when you have moderate stress do you have high growth. Now, granted, this curve will change depending on who you are, what you're trying to learn, and the amount of time that you've been learning this new thing, okay? And so as you begin to learn as you start doing a thing more, it becomes easier to do that thing, right? Like, think about day 1 when you started throwing just a chop, right? Throwing a chop, like just hitting somebody in the shoulder and doing that accurately, right? I remember that being almost insurmountable. I'm just I'm spamming the button, right? But now as a warlord, that's trivial, right? And for everybody here, hopefully chops are relatively straightforward, or you have some confidence around that. But the more that you practice doing that thing, the easier it becomes, right? So if you want to become better at throwing chops or whatever, you're going to have to, the stress curve, right? It's like this, it's going to be pushed out, or it'll flatten out a little bit. That is just an abstraction. It doesn't really matter, but the main point is the more you do stuff, the easier it becomes, and the more you learn. Okay. All right. So really what you want to do is you want to maximize your time in moderate stress areas so you have maximum growth, right? You don't want to be over here where you're not really engaged. For example, I would say this is the area where we have some people at Park who want to be good at fighting, or are kind of on the path to Warlord or increasing their skill, but they are not pressured enough, or they do not pressure themselves enough to get on the field and actually grind. Or Some people want to have subtle goals of getting better at Florentine or getting better at single, but it is easier for them to just go sword and board and rely on that passive defense to keep fighting, right? Like, it's somewhat hard to get better at a thing that you're bad at because people like to be good at stuff, right? So you have to push yourself in those instances up, right? Like, if you want to get good at single sword, you got to use single sword. Like, I don't really know another way to get good at single sword if you don't practice single sword, right? Or, sword and board or Florentine or pole arm or whatever. Okay, so you want to maximize in that intermediate area. If you're overwhelmed with stuff, take a step back. Kind of, if life is crazy, mundane life is really hard, maybe focus on mundane life a little bit. Like, it's okay to take a break from fighting to focus on the real world. I mean, when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I pretty much stepped away from Stick Dork for 4 years. And that was so I could focus on real life. So when I came back to amtgard was great, or amtgard was fun. Amtgard was my area of relief. I wasn't stressed in going to amtgard. All right. So once you're in that middle zone, how do we use this? Or how do we use this, like, concept of being in the middle, right? So I would say, first off, you want to, when you begin to learn new skills, learn in a controlled environment. As an engineer, we always learned stuff like concepts in a safe area, safe, right? In a classroom, that is a controlled environment, right? In terms of, or for engineering, that's like pen and paper. We're not building actual, like, reactors that could blow up and kill hundreds of thousands of people, or like accidentally poison streams and whatever, or chemical streams, right? It's pen and paper. So in terms of amtgard, I would say this is where you are practicing drills, right? You're drilling. I just made a drill video. Go check it out. You are using a pel, ha, fa, fa, right? Like, you start off slow, right? Oh, I need to practice a chop. I'm not just gonna, like, start throwing full speed as fast as I can. Work on the mechanic. Understand what I'm actually supposed to be doing, right? This chop is boom, boom, right? And then resetting to guard, boom, other shot, so on and so forth. Build up your speed. Once you understand actually what you're doing, as you build up the reflex, right? Now go faster. Also, this is really important. Conceptualize what you're trying to do, right? If you can, and this is something that you can do not at amtgard. It's what I would do 80% of my time on my grind when I was going to Warlord, is I would be at my office, at home, whatever, and I would conceptualize imagining myself throw money, or imagine myself doing whatever combo, right? I could shadow box it, or I would just think about, like, oh, I need to throw here, then throw there, right? Or whatever. But thinking about and visualizing and conceptualizing what you're doing is still a form of practice, because then once you go to do the drill, you now already have the mental part ingrained. You just have to physically do it and now build the muscle mind memory into that. So visualization is really important. Let's see. So additionally, so once you kind of, like, are ready to use you feel like you've used a controlled environment enough, I would say this is where you start beginning to go out and apply that thing on the field. You could do it with a buddy, right? If you have a fighting buddy, I don't have Sean here today, but I could be like, hey Sean, let's practice whatever fight. Like, I want to throw money. Just stand there and let me hit you, or whatever. Or I want you to like, I want you to know this shot is coming, and now I want to do the follow up shot, right? So it could be like money and then shield side shoulder or whatever, right? And then I would still call that a controlled environment, but it's 1 degree more variability, and then actually fully apply it, right? Go on the ditch field and start practicing that shot. Be very intentional. When I was on my grind and stuff, I would go out every single day and I would have a shot or a concept that I wanted to practice. Of like, all right, I need to throw money, or I need to work on my lunges, or whatever. And that's what I would do every single day. Now, granted, I wouldn't do it every single time, but I would continue to integrate that again and again and again. Right? I'm deliberately forcing myself to do this. I'm maintaining pressure on myself to keep myself accountable and to help me continue to grow. And then, yeah, like, try to do it in different ways. Fight people at different levels. I would say when you start doing the application, start doing this if you have the ability to on like a lower end fighter. You know, if you're learning how to throw a dark side or learning how to throw money, and you're going to come up to a warlord and you're going to throw it, odds are you're probably not going to succeed very well. But that doesn't mean that you didn't throw it properly. It just means you're fighting somebody that is like super high caliber, right? So I'd recommend like building your way up. Don't just like beat up newbies. Like that's not what I'm saying, right? You could use them as a tool in the toolbox to begin to build yourself up, but then go to intermediate players, right? And then go to high tier fighters or warlords. And then if you really want to like test your mastery of a skill, go outside a kingdom. Go visit other people or other places and try to do that stuff there if you have the time, the ability to, right? Because then that will prove to you that you can actually apply that to a wide range of people. And like also how it fits within the meta, as like Raven talks about it. So the other thing that I would say is be very consistent with it. Just because I practice money on this week, next week I still need to practice money. Now, money may not be my main focus next week, but I still need to be consistent in throwing it so I don't lose that, right? Like in terms of learning, if you don't use it, you lose it. So be very consistent. Or be more consistent. Additionally, try to integrate whatever you're learning once you feel pretty comfortable with the baseline fundamentals. Try to integrate it with different things, right? So I need you now, Leon. So try to integrate what you're trying to do with different concepts, different shots, whatever. And then, so for example, or like be creative with it. So for example, I'm just going to talk about a dark side, right? So the dark side is a very simple shot where it's like, boom. Give me a little bit more space, right? Boom. Right? This is the classic dark side. But you can integrate a dark side or do a dark side in different ways. You know, I can step off and throw. I can step that way. I can throw this way. Right? No, go back. I can throw a high dark side. I can throw like a dark side flat wrap. Right? Or I can do like a dark stab. Right? There's all of these things. It's the same base movement, but now I'm being creative in accessing different parts of my opponent's body or guard that I can hit them. All right, thank you. Additionally, I think so. I could not talk about goal setting and learning without talking about failure. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure is super important. Just because you fail, you should not feel bad. Actually, failure, as a scientist, I look forward to failure because that is a perfect learning experience, right? Every time you fail, you should know why you failed, right? Because if you know why you fail, you can change what you did, or you have something perfect, or like you now have something that you can work with and apply and grow upon, right? If you continue to fail in your goals or like in whatever shot you're doing, that may be a great time to take a step back and think about, all right, what is it that I'm doing wrong, right? If I'm throwing the dark side, so for example, when I was learning how to do dark sides, I talked about this in my drills video. I started off doing dark sides like this. I'd come under, I'd come all the way out, like load in, like wrap myself, and then I'd throw. Right? This is a very slow shot relatively, but now I've optimized it to I come under and around. It's one shot. It's one fluid motion. And so when I started fighting people, and I was trying to do dark sides, I could never hit the hip when they would throw high crosses, and I was like, "What the hell am I doing?" And it wasn't until I talked to Dog Boy out in Northern Lights, rest in peace, is he's like, "Oh yeah, you need to throw. You don't need to load and then throw." And then once I moved that, where I got rid of that middle motion, this load motion I just threw, I was starting to hit people that I wasn't able to hit before. So this is where like a coach or somebody who's more experienced can really benefit you. But it's really about failure, right? If you are failing at something, it is a perfect opportunity to take a step back and look and survey what you're doing wrong, what you could be doing better. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of like really what I have for today. I think, again, like just as a quick recap, when it comes to goal setting, realize that when it comes to being a warlord or whatever, you're not just racing to the top of the mountain. There are checkpoints along the way, and setting yourself up to get to those checkpoints is really important, right? So with the ladder awards, it's, all right, I need to get to 1, I need to get to 2, I need to get to 3 warriors, so on and so forth, right? But the way that you do that is you need to build out skills, and to figure out what skills you need to build, you need to think about yourself as a fighter and what you need to learn, and then begin to build your plan, right? Provide, like, be diligent in the things that you are practicing, be consistent, be very deliberate about what you're doing, and apply a little bit of pressure on yourself to continue to learn and grow. And don't be afraid of failure, because failure is how you actually learn. So that's all I have for today. I appreciate your time and attention, and I look forward to you on my next Newb Warlord series. Thanks, guys.